it definitely is a pattern of mine to push against the rules, push against systems, and challenge things that don't make sense to me. And it served me well, but it's also, again, entrepreneurship allows me to do those things. That's why it felt like such a good fit.
Welcome to This is Perimenopause, the podcast where we delve into the transformative journey of perimenopause and beyond. I'm one of your hosts, Mikkel.
And I'm your other host, Michelle. And together, along with about 1 billion other people on this planet, we're embarking on this milestone of life. We personally struggled for years with perimenopause symptoms, and it took us a while to figure out what was happening. Even now, there are some days that are still a struggle. We know firsthand how confusing, overwhelming, and downright scary this phase of life can be.
So we're on a mission to help others be better informed than we were when we started our journeys. Our podcast is a blend of health, education, mindset, and personal growth. We're sharing real-life stories and expert advice to help you navigate this journey and advocate for your best health.
Because this stage in our life is an incredible opportunity. We used to think menopause signaled an end, but really, it's just the beginning.
This podcast is for general information only. It's designed to educate, inspire, and support you on your personal journey through perimenopause. The information and opinions on this podcast are not intended to be a substitution for primary care, diagnosis, or treatment. The information on this podcast does not replace professional healthcare advice. The use of the information discussed is at the sole discretion of the listener. If you are suffering from symptoms or have questions, please consult a qualified healthcare practitioner.
Hello, Mikkel. How's it going?
Hey, Michelle. I'm good. I'm really excited about our guest today. I feel like this is one of those, the universe speaking to us when our producer, Amy, shared her list of potential guests. And I read the name. I thought, wow, that name's familiar. And then realized we went to undergrad with her, with our guest today. And our producer, Amy, knows her guest from childhood. So I feel like it's one of those meant to be situations. So maybe instead of keeping everybody waiting, you can just jump in and introduce our next guest and why we're so excited to have her today.
Absolutely. Our guest today is Michelle Hillier, and she is the founder of Breath and Fire, which is amazing. She's going to tell us all about shortly. But she's dynamic, she's energetic, she's passionate, and she's had a credible journey of self-discovery and growth. She started as a professional dancer on a cruise ship, and from there she's evolved into an educator, a speaker, a published author, a content creator, and a serial entrepreneur. It's an incredible journey and a fascinating story, and I can't wait to dive in.
Hey, it's so nice to see all of you together on one screen, I have to say. I've known Amy since we were like 12.
So my kids are just finished grade 7, so they're the same age that we were when we met.
That's right. And my son's going into grade 6 this year. So he's entering that middle school.
Yes.
And Michelle and Mikkel, you have kids too.
Yeah, I have a son going into grade 6 as well.
Oh, you do? Okay.
In the fall. And I have a daughter he's turning 11 in 2 weeks and she's turning 13 on Friday.
And my son Finn is 16. So
right. I've kind of been following you a little bit on Facebook, you and Jason, and seeing and your kids are a bit older. Yeah. It's so nice to see your face again. And Amy, like we have such a sweet background too. So I'm happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. Why don't we start at the beginning? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's that is a journey for sure. I went to my undergrad with you too. And then from there, I always danced my whole life. That was sort of, my mom always said, I danced before I walked kind of thing, put music on and I could move. And I was put on stage at a very young age and was very comfortable there. And, part of my story is in the work I'm doing now, fast forward, 40 years, 45 years, I'm comfortable on stage, but I think I was pushed into this extroversion as a kid that I'm now like embracing my introversion. It'll come up when I talk about breath and fire, the breath part, because fire comes to me, no problem. So on stage, dancing out there. And then that led to like going to university for not dance, but then the itch to get out and perform after. So I was lucky to land on a cruise ship for a year and danced around the Caribbean. And it was like a dream. It was actually amazing. It was also a great way to escape. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. But what the cruise ship gave me was a chance to see people from other parts of the world. And I met people from around the world. Like I grew up in Waterloo, Ontario. So it's bigger now. Obviously, I know it's grown. Even Laurier has grown so much, but it gave me a chance to get to see people that weren't like me. And that gave me a real flavor of like, I don't think I'm meant to stay in Waterloo. So I moved from the cruise ship right to Toronto because I was trying to get back on ships again, but I was too short for the contracts that they had available. It's all based on height. So they had no short girl ships available. So I would have gone, looking back, I would have gone back out and probably cruised for years. But again, that was a great way to escape, like having to grow up. So grounded at home and thought, you know what, I don't know. And they danced for a number of years in like music theater. I sing as well. So it was really great. And enjoyed that, but really missed out because as you're performing, you miss out on everything that's social because you're performing when everyone's doing things in the nighttime. So that's just how it was. So I got really sick of that. And I wanted to kind of do something that didn't involve dancing and being on a stage and people clapping in the dark for me. I'm like, there's more for me to this. So I did my Bachelor of Education at U of T, and I thought, I'll be a school teacher. Sounds good. Well, that's a commitment. And I also learned I don't like commitments. I got into it. I got my full-time job as a dance drama high school teacher. Everyone I knew thought I landed the jackpot. Pension, benefits. I was going nowhere. And that scared the crap out of me because I was used to curtain closes, contracts over, move on to the next thing. And that's why I'm an entrepreneur. It works well for me because it's constantly evolving and shifting with projects. So the thought that I could stay in this job until I'm 60 was like, no, thank you. I don't want to do this. So it kind of it definitely is a pattern of mine to push against the rules, push against systems, and challenge things that don't make sense to me. And it served me well, but it's also, again, entrepreneurship allows me to do those things. That's why it felt like such a good fit. So I also didn't like having to go to the same building, teach the same children, right. 9 to 5, the bells are going. I just doesn't work for me. So I took an early retirement after 3 years and started my own business.
Wow.
I can't miss out a very important part though. My dad passed away suddenly, right around the time I was miserable teaching. And when he passed, I was like, you know what? Like I took some time off, was with my mom. I'm an only child. So it was devastating for the both of us. And I had to float into this role that I was not used to doing, was caring for her. It was a lot. I think back and go, whoa, that was a lot to go through. I didn't probably grieve. I was just project managing. That was 15 years ago, I think. Yeah. When his passing just sort of shone a light on that, like I need to be happy. I don't want to keep going because he always wanted me to be happy. My dad had like tremendous unconditional love for me, and whatever I did, he just knew I would figure it out. So I'm like, I'm going to quit teaching and start my own business. So I remember being at my family home, helping with all the funeral plans. And then when that was settled, I stayed with my mom for a while and I started musing out like business plans of what it could look like. Like I have a dance background, I have an education background. The new dance curriculum had just rolled out in the province and there was no resources for it. There was no professional development to help teachers. I'm like, I'm going to make a company that helps people do that. So I started a company called Fit to Dance. I felt like I'd come home, like having my own business for sure. And we were in like 800 schools across the country doing programs. It was really good. And then I got pregnant. That will rock your world. So my baby was my business. And then all of a sudden a real baby comes.
Right. Oh my goodness.
It was like, it grounded me. It made me feel bored. I'm just being truly honest here because there's no why sugarcoat it, right, about motherhood. It made me feel like I didn't know who I was anymore. That identity as the girl on stage and the leader and the mover and shaker. Like I had more weight on me. Things kind of didn't feel right anymore. And I had this baby that is number one. And it was hard because my business was thriving and all my focus had to go into this baby.
Was it a planned pregnancy or a surprise?
It was planned. It was kind of planned in like, if it happens, and I don't know if inside I was thinking, I don't know if I also was never the little girl that like dreamed of the marriage and family and the traditional sense. I just didn't dream of that. Now, don't get me wrong, my son, James, who's delicious and love of my life, he's 11. Like I couldn't imagine life without him. So I found it really tough and the business definitely suffered. It didn't work anymore with me being a mother of a newborn and having to run a business at the same time. So things sort of petered off and I was finding my way once again. I think that's a common theme for me is ebbs and flows.
I think too, though, we don't talk enough about entrepreneurs and motherhood because we don't get maternity leave. It's not, well, we'll see in a year and your job will still be here. When you say bored, it's because, well, I found it, I don't know what word I would use, but all of a sudden everything stops and you're at home and you have to keep going with work because you're the one making work going. But then you have this other important thing and it just tears you right in half. And you don't take enough time. I didn't take enough time either time. And I don't think it helped anybody, but there's not a lot of choice because we don't talk about it. And there's not a lot of support for women entrepreneurs and motherhood, I find. So I know what you're talking about, Michelle. I feel that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amen. I guess what my solution was, though, I'm going to do a postpartum mom baby groove class. When James was way too young, he was probably 7 weeks old, strapped him on, I'm leaking everywhere and I'm teaching. I'm hauling a sound system upstairs of the town hall here. He's like crying. I'm like a mess and I'm then on. And that I look back and go, that was me though, trying to be my old self. Well, that ended up being actually a big success, this Mom Baby Groove class, where that could have been its own company on itself. Mothers loved it. I played like 90s hip hop and EDM and like old rock and roll songs, and everyone's dancing along and we're all bopping with our babies. And they're like, Michelle, we forgot we were mothers for 45 minutes.
That's so nice. You're going to have to give us a playlist at the end to put in the show notes.
Yeah, people can follow me on Spotify and get all my playlists.
Because I need a new playlist of any kind, 90s, anything.
I love music. Like, it's totally my jam. This is kind of fun to track back and think, wow. But also neat to see themes, right?
Yeah.
That's the neat part. And we can only, moving forward, see, like, I think Steve Jobs kind of quoted this idea where you have to look at the dots going backwards to feel like all those things were meant to happen to me, or the universe was supposed to have them encounter them, even though at the time they were hard. I didn't mention also I went through a divorce in my late 20s. I went through a divorce 2.5 years ago. 2 divorces. I'm not getting married again. Like, I'm done. I'm not meant for it. It's rules. I don't want rules. I don't want to tell, like, no marriage papers. No way, man. Done. So it's just interesting, but no regrets, no shame. It's all learning. It's like, thank you for the lesson. Now I get to move on and make a different choice.
Totally agree with you. From there, you started, did you have another company after that?
I did. I had a company called Groove Education. I partnered with a business, another woman. That was an interesting journey too. Well, that's like a marriage. So I basically have had 3 courses. And you really have to get clear. I don't know if any listeners have business or looking at having their own businesses, but you have to be clear on your values and your core beliefs with a business partner, because even if the product is something you agree on, and we agreed on this school education movement program, our core beliefs as humans were really different. And we get along now that we're not working together. We still keep in touch, but we did not work well together. So that led to a dissolving of the company. Big piece of that. After I had James, I started having some weird hip pain. So pain in my hip, I'm thinking something's up. I then join a really competitive workout group, postpartum workout group. Have to lose the last bit of baby weight, which, by the way, no one does. It's total crap. But I was in the mindset of I need to get this body back. So I joined this group of women that are at least 10 years younger than me. And I'm showing off and doing all the things. I remember doing some sort of piston squat. I came back up and I felt this weird feeling. And the trainer's like, Michelle went all the way down. Show us another one. I did another one. I tore my labrum. And I went to a surgeon, did all the imaging, and he sat me down in 2017 and said, I can't believe you danced your whole life on these hips without more pain because you need both hips replaced. I was like in total denial because it couldn't be true.
Statistically, you feel, and Mikkel's also had a hip replacement, but statistically you feel way too young, right? Like, this is for old people. Like,
I knew it would also change my life. I'm like, what is this going to do to my identity as a movement person?
Yeah.
But it's all meant to be. It made me slow down. So I had them both replaced 2018, the right, then the left. So I healed all through 2019. I remember taking the first step. I'm not sure if Mikkel if he had arthritis, but I took the first step post-surgery. It was like 8 hours after. They came in with the walker. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I took that first step, and yes, I had like wound post-surgery pain, but the arthritic pain was gone. And I was like, oh my God, that deep, dark pain was gone. So anybody that's got chronic pain, I have so much friggin' empathy for.
I always say to people, you don't realize how much pain you're in, especially when it's something that progresses like that, until you're not. I vividly remember those first steps and thinking, oh my God, this is incredible. Yeah.
And walking.
Yeah.
I can walk
Yeah.
pain-free. We take for granted the walking. So that's what I don't now. Like I walk everywhere I can. And my surgeon recommended I never have impact anymore. So no purposeful landing on my foot. I'm gentle with my body and I'm pain-free. I'm just like, it's an immense amount of gratitude I have for my body now that I didn't respect it, even though it served me. It was my job. It's what paid the bills. What gave me my identity, what made me happy. I didn't take care of it. I didn't give it the love it needed. And it led to what happened, but it's all part of the plan. I think it was all part of the plan to slow down. So 2019, I'm kind of like healed. I've also moved. The business partner and I dissolved. I then start on my own again. And I start getting a lot of corporate interest, which was really cool to enter because, man, ladies, the money is where the corporate world is. I left education where I would get like whatever for a day-long session of like huffing and moving. I'm like, we'll pay you that for a 45-minute keynote presentation. Done. Like it was a no-brainer. So that was a really sweet deal. And that all came from, networking. I was healed up, booking corporate work, moving into like keynote speaking and talking about my hips a little more and adversity and resiliency. And this is important that I mention this. I was also talking about wellness and taking care of yourself. This is 2019. And then 2020, March, we know what happens. The world shuts down. And my calendar for 2020 was booked. Mm-hmm. Really excited about the year. So I feel like every like day or two, I was getting a cancellation. We're pivoting to online. We're going into 2021. And COVID lockdown felt like after having James. Also felt like after my hip surgeries, lockdown, grounded. Mm-hmm. Like they have the same feeling for me. Mm-hmm. Identity's gone. I can't move. I'm stuck, literally stuck I was in a condo during COVID with my then husband and son, James. All the amenities were shut down in our condo building. We were like a little box in the sky. All the uncertainty around it. I had the huge part of my story, ladies, I have to share. It's the only reason Breath and Fire was born is that work was one of my escapes. The marriage that already had cracks in it, to be honest, like we weren't meant to journey the rest of our lives together, but the lockdown and the togetherness really shone a light on that. Yes. Big time. I think couples went one of two ways, right? They either like went see ya or they like got tighter together. Who knows? But we definitely saw some cracks in our marriage for sure. I couldn't do my work that fed me, that was like gave me purpose and gave my soul like light. So my other escape to have fun was booze, was alcohol. And booze has been part of my story for a long time. And it was managed well. Heavy drinker, I'd say, my whole life, but I could always still pull off great grades, pull off great jobs. No relationships were damaged. I could always get up and needed to do what I had to do. But I was always the girl that needed the like drink before the pre-party and the drink after the after party. I just didn't want the party to stop. And I think when I look back, I didn't want my light, like I didn't want life to come to a standstill. So I had to look at myself then.
Do you think, Michelle, part of it, when we started talking about being pushed into extroversion, do you think that the alcohol kind of was greasing those wheels for you? I think I think we're coming to understand, I don't know if you follow Adam Grant, but we're coming to understand that we're not the Myers-Briggs personality tests, cut and dry. Just because you're an extrovert doesn't mean you're always an extrovert. But I think sometimes when you're labeled as that, you feel a pressure to continue to perform, and anybody would need help, right? To be able to continue that 100% of the time.
Couldn't agree more. Michelle's here. She's the performer. Let the party begin. Okay, give me some booze. I really don't think I'm really that much of a performer unless I'm on stage.
Right.
Like I don't like to be the center of attention. I also never felt like I truly fit in anywhere, but I always felt alcohol helped me fit in a bit better. Yeah, I can only look back at it now with a clear mind, the clarity I have and the knowledge I have around addiction and alcohol. So 2020 got pretty dark. My mom also got diagnosed with dementia. So I had to put her in a home. She's 88 now in a home here in Toronto. and only child. There was nowhere for her to go. She couldn't live with us and couldn't live alone. So I had to take her to the Mount Sinai psych ward. And after I dropped her off, went and got alcohol. It just helped me cope with anything difficult.
Yeah.
And 2020 was the hardest year of my life for sure. So come July of 2020, my husband and I decide to stop drinking. Well, he decides we should stop drinking. And that terrifies me because he was also my drinking buddy. We connected through alcohol for sure.
Right.
And so he quits, no problem. He's a normie. This is where it goes weird for me and dark. It's like become the character that you see in movies that's like hiding booze and lying about booze and sneaking booze. I did all that.
Oh, wow.
And I knew what I was doing though. I wasn't in denial of it. I felt like I had no other way out. I always say I don't have a drinking problem. I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a life problem, and drinking was my solution. Oh, the mum wine culture. I could talk about that too. The mummies in the park drinking wine. That was my jam. Made it acceptable, right? So yeah, my girlfriends were worried. My husband was worried, and I waved the white flag and was willing to get help. And I went to a treatment center for 30 days in November of 2020.
Oh, wow.
Changed my life. And fought a little bit of a relapse after, which I think is natural. It's a gift. I think it's a gift because it shows you what it could be like if you try again. And I just celebrated 2 years sobriety last week.
Yay!
Congratulations. Amazing.
It's amazing. And ladies, I remember reading early days of Quick Lit around booze free life, and they talk about a simple little life. I'm like, bah, I want a colorful, big, bold life. I want nothing more than a simple little life. And I find being sober and the work I do with others, Breath and Fire now, it's so more rewarding. And I am not bored at all. In the opposite. I thought I'd be bored.
And so tell us a little bit about Breath and Fire, how this evolved from that experience.
So I put everything work-wise on hold when I was in my recovery, so 2021. And then I started thinking, what's my work to the world now? What's my service to the world? I have all these experiences. And I started journaling. And Breath and Fire literally came of journaling. Journaling was new for me. I never wanted to put pen to paper for my whole life. And it was part of my recovery was journaling, meditating, moving, reading. And I started coming up with this idea of okay, so all my businesses before and all my work were very passion fire out there. I was thinking the elements, and then breath came in, and I want to do more breath and Breath and Fire. And it kind of came at journaling. It's very organic. And so it's Breath and Fire represents the balance, the yin and yang of life that I help people look at, because all of us have a little more breath or a little more fire. It's how I live. I basically have taken my recovery and the things that have worked for me and that I practice, nothing that I teach or speak about, I have not done myself. That was new for me, because even when I mentioned I was on stage talking about live your best life, I was either hungover or wanting to drink after. So that felt a little hypocritical or like a fraudulent in a way. Now couldn't be more tapped into my authentic self. The drinking flare-ups throughout my life was when I was disconnected to my authentic self, which I knew was there. That girl on the cruise ship, that was her. And it took me 20 years to find her again.
And so what is Breath and Fire?
So it's a platform that I've created for all the work that I do. So I kind of wear many hats, and I offer super customized programming. So anything from coaching. So I do recovery coaching. I'm a certified recovery coach for those that are in addiction recovery from substance or from anything. I think we're all in recovery from something. So I do coaching, wellness coaching. Breath and Fire also offers a keynote presentation that I created called Find Your Flame, that I'm on stages for, BMO and Loblaws and big companies. So that's been really rewarding having that sort of platform. And then I do classes here in the city, the Odd Community class. I did a full moon ceremony last night, which was great.
What is that?
Full moon's all about release. So it's about letting go of something that doesn't serve you or something that you want to let go of in your life. So we all have that. So I do a longer meditation at the beginning. They're hold a stone, candles, the whole thing. And they think about something they want to release. And then we put it into practice with our bodies. So I do a whole playlist of music where we dance and shake, and yeah, it's great. And then at the end, we do a long meditation, bring us back to our intention that we want to release and move on. So yeah, so coaching, speaking, teaching, it's really customizable. So if anybody wants anything. They're looking at their own wellness and what, especially women in this perimenopause age. I feel like, my kids might be gone off to college, university, or they're old enough where they're kind of independent. And the women, I'm going to use women, are like, who am I? What do I like? Who is this body? Those are my clients. I ran a retreat in January, and I was put it out to everybody I knew and promoted it. And it was, every woman was over 55.
I feel like as women, we give up so much of ourselves for everyone all our lives. And at some point, when the kids are leaving the house, and it's kind of a big awakening. And for many people, it's a very difficult time. So, the transformation that you're helping these women to achieve is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. And a neat question that I ask them is, it can become a daunting one, but it's always turns out is like, when did you feel most your authentic self, or when did you feel in optimal wellness? When you felt your best self, how can we tap back into that now? Because you're still there. Your light might have gone a little flickered low, and that's where the breath and fire piece came too, is that I was like a raging flippin' inferno for 25 years. And then I was like a pilot light during like the hip surgeries and COVID. So now I try to achieve a controlled blaze, which is a bit of both, because we don't want the extremes.
No.
And now what I've always done in my whole life is I love taking certifications and workshops and classes of all these things that are very, like, I think very amazing, but not for the everyday person. Like, I can handle breathwork ceremonies that are intensely like 90 minutes long. I can go to meditation retreats and yoga ashrams, but then I take them all and think, how can the regular person, how can I make this accessible for them? And that's what I do. And so my sessions include like dudes in corporate suits, or like preschool teachers or mothers. Like, it doesn't matter. I make them feel that they can try these things that may seem a little woo-woo or out of their realm, bringing it to them. That's what I love to do, is make things out there very accessible.
I think that's really important, because not all women, but up to 80% of women experience symptoms in perimenopause and struggle with it, and a lot of them struggle with those symptoms. And I think it can become overwhelming to try to undertake something, right, that is significant, because it's typically hits at the peak of their lives. They're parenting, they're at the height of their careers, they've got a lot going on. And as you say, to go and take a 90-minute breathwork course,
like,
just
when do we have time for that?
Wouldn't work, wouldn't happen. And even if they did try, it would probably fizzle. So I think the ability to introduce things in a introductory, softer manner, right? And I think that's also a big piece that is really important, because medication and medical support can only take you so far. I think a lot of women who struggle in perimenopause are, in fact, really disconnected from their authentic selves.
Couldn't agree more. And if I can just share too some of my thoughts around moving our body, so that this has changed for me huge, and how I teach and what I share about movement, because I used to teach a boot camp class. Remember when boot camps were popular in like 2006, 7, 8, 9? Like, I bought a park permit here in Toronto, and like 25 women come out at 6 a.m. and we're like sprinting up hills and doing jumps on benches. Like, it was really great. Now I still see those women. These are in my neighborhood. They're all like in their 60s, and they're like, oh, those days in the park, I wish we could do something else together. But I've evolved with that too. My idea that the harder, faster, stronger workout is just not a healthy term for me to use, or for women that are older to use.
Most women our age, yeah.
Our age, right? So I say, come and move with me. We're going to move. And the way I move my body has changed too. I don't like using the word exercise or fitness or workout. It's like, we're going to move. And I explored Kundalini yoga, which is all about spinal awakening and like life force we have in us, and moving it. It's very cool to practice. And it's this shifting of energy and basic movements like shaking, swinging, twisting, rotating, stomping, movements we can all do. Again, back to accessibility. And doing it like bite size, like a little bit every day, not this big, like, I go to the gym 3 days a week and work out for an hour and a half. Like, that is not happening. Like 20 minutes a day, that's it, with like some intuitive flow or whatever I'm going to do. And with that, this is the wild part. I've been like in the best physical condition of my life.
Also something to be said for your cortisol levels when you're not pushing your body and when you're practicing breath work and calming your body and calming your parasympathetic nervous system and it's all connected.
I'm glad you mentioned the cortisol because I have many dear girlfriends that care about their wellness, and they're school teachers. And that is a really demanding job on anybody that's even doing the best self-care that they can, because and we talk about their cortisol levels. They're aware of it. And in the summer, they just settle, the belly fat goes away, they're eating the same, but their cortisol is not spiked. They're not in fight or flight all day like they are at school. And I'm just saying school, I'm sure it's any sort of high pressure job, but we really want to get people to that window of tolerance, not the hyper arousal, hypo arousal. You just want to be where things can come at you and you know how to deal with them. But that takes awareness and practice. I always tell my clients, like, oh, meditation, breath work, moving, yoga, like, let's just do a little bit, 5 minutes. Anybody can try 5 minutes. And then they see the results of that. And then the meditation's been really big for me too, is not meditating when something's stressful, like, oh, I'm freaking out right now, I should meditate. That's not the time. It's the meditation practice that happens every morning or whatever works for you, so that when crap comes at you, you're attuned, you know how to settle, you have that practice.
Well, Michelle, I will tell you, and poor Mikkel has heard this far too often, but I've done breath work, and that's part of my daily practice. I try to make it part of my daily practice, let's say that. And so when I fall out of it, I can feel it, but also I now know how to calm my system. So even if I'm going in for like painful fillers in my lips, which I know we're not supposed to do, but maybe I've done once or twice, like, I know how to breathe my way through that pain now, just through my breath. Like it's amazing what your breath can do for you. I always said, but if I had a breath coach and like a mindset coach together, which I think maybe you are,
that could be me.
I could move the world. So Michelle, I'll be
call me up. And that's one thing that my coaching is, but my coaching is unique because we move, like we move together, we breathe together. Like even at the start of a coaching session on Zoom, I ground us and I talk about how important movement is. And I'm happy to share with your listeners too, a link in your show notes for my 12-day breath and fire challenge. So it's a daily, and they can just click the link. It's free. So it's a 5-minute movement video, a 5-minute audio file of a breath work or meditation, and then a PDF of a journal prompt. 15 minutes of like a morning practice I don't like to call it a morning routine or ritual. I think it's like too scary. A morning practice, morning commitment, daily commitment, doesn't have to be in the morning, that you move, you get centered somehow, breath work or meditate, and then you get some sort of thoughts out about a theme or a question that I prompt. Like 15 minutes is doable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is, but I have to say I'm the opposite of Michelle. So I've tried journaling, I've done a little yoga. I'm not really like the get centered type, but I find it fascinating. But then when I hear the two of you talk where Michelle's already done it and you're an expert, it's intimidating to start. So if there are people out there that are like, I could actually use that help. How do you start? I get you could email you or you could reach out, but that's intimidating in of itself. Why should we, and why is it okay just to reach out and say, hi, I need some help? And is that enough just to get started, I guess?
Yes. I want to say, like, what I've learned in recovery, if you are open, willing, and honest to try anything, those three, open, willing, and honest with yourself, that you need help, willing to go for it, and then open-minded to what is out there, that is enough. So having those three and getting over the little pity committee in your head that it's going to sell for something like that it's not going to be, and the judgment, we have a lot of judgment as women of getting it right. Mm-hmm. So giving yourself like self-compassion that it's new, it's different, and starting something is the hardest thing. Reaching out is vulnerable, right? So I think it's facing some vulnerability as well. I've been there. So if anybody does want to reach out, I feel like I'm really approachable. Send the alcoholics my way, baby. Or if you're sober curious, what would life look like without alcohol? I also talk to clients like that.
Mikkel has also given up alcohol. And I do find I am sober curious because I'm like, how?
So Mikkel, was that just a choice? Didn't want it in your life?
Yeah, so I kind of went the other way when COVID happened, probably about a month or so in homeschooling, full-time job, both my husband and I, it was just chaos like it was for everyone. And I recognized that I was not coping well, that my mental health was starting to take a hit. And so I just said, if we're going to get through this, I need all of my wits about me. I need to be at my best, and I am not at my best when I'm drinking wine. I can drink tequila, and it doesn't seem to impact me in the same way. So that's kind of, if I do drink, that's what it is. But essentially, I stopped drinking. I can probably count on two hands. I can count on two hands the number of times I've had alcohol since March of 2020. I do sometimes have a drink, but it's pretty rare.
When she comes to Ontario.
Yeah, when I'm with Michelle.
Yeah, when you're with Michelle, I'm sure.
Yeah, I will have some cocktails.
Are you
sure.
drinking now?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it just was and I think it was COVID, very perimenopausal, a lot of things going on, and I just recognized that having a glass of wine might feel good in the moment, but it wasn't helping me overall, so I decided to stop.
I know it affects women like in perimenopause, menopause, with their sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm even like, my friends will say I've had one and it's like totally screws my sleep up.
Alcohol with perimenopause, like they don't mix. It's not great for our sleep, for our cortisol levels, for our weight, like for so many things.
It triggers anxiety
and inflammation. Like the inflammation I was carrying was unbelievable when I stopped.
Yeah.
Just like kind of melted away and just felt more settled. Yeah, the anxiety was pretty rough too. I mean, I think back, like it was meant to happen. I didn't plan to get sober around perimenopause, but it was meant to be.
Yeah. Have you had any perimenopausal symptoms or challenges from a perimenopause perspective?
No, I would say just messed up cycles, like twice a month.
Yeah.
Every couple months. Yeah, like I'm on the Stardust app, which I love. It's an app that follows like the moon cycles and your cycle, and it's very spiritual connection too, and has symptoms. So if I'm on like day 17, I'm like, it could happen. I don't know. So that I never know. And then another month it'll be normal. So that this cycle, my doctor said, once you have no period for a year, then we'll talk about. But perimenopause, yeah. Worst cramps on day 1 and 2 that I never had for 30 years. And the night before I get my period, a very insane night sweat.
Interesting.
Just one night. And that's kind of it that I notice.
So 1 year from your last period is when you'll be in menopause. But if you're having symptoms prior to that, go to your doctor immediately, because there is help to get you through that. You don't have to wait until you're officially in menopause to get help.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. Michelle, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. We have one more question for you before we let you go. And that is, if you could share one thing with women in perimenopause, what would that be?
You're never too old and it's never too late. From personal experience, turning 50 next year, like we're 49. We're younger than you, Michelle and Mikkel, Amy and I. But like, I never thought in my wildest dreams I would be single, sober, in my new apartment, having my son 50-50, living on my own, kind of starting over. And I couldn't be more exuberant, more excited for my future. I feel like the decade of 50s is going to be my decade. But my old self would have been like, you can't start new things then. And that can be anything from new jobs, new relationships, new locations, new hobbies, new practices. You're never too old and it's never too late to start something new. That's all.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, thank you. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate your openness, honesty, your authenticity, and your willingness to share all of your journey with us. And I think that perimenopause can be a lonely, daunting, scary, confusing time for a lot of people, for a lot of women. And to hear you say that, you think 50 is going to be your decade, I think that with the right care, support, it can be that way for anyone. The challenge is just figuring out the steps you need to take to find that path. And I think your approach is one of the keys, which is, soft and gentle, right? All of this is doable, but it takes time, and we have to be gentle with ourselves, and we have to be willing and open to try new things. And if we can do that, if we could just do that and just start, then to your point, it's never too late. And I would just add that anything's possible. So thank you. It's been very inspiring. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to the show. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to our podcast. When you do this, it helps to raise our podcast profile so more women can find us and get a little better understanding of what to expect in perimenopause.
We also read all the reviews, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to help us continuously improve our show. We would love to hear from you. You can connect with us through the podcast, on social media, or through our website. Our information, as well as links and details from our conversation today, can be found in the show notes.